My name's Chris Watson. I run Endor Learn and Develop, and for the last 16 years we've focused exclusively on behaviourally based learning and development. So effectively what we look at is not what people do, but the way that they go about it. In those 16 years we've picked up some unexpected insights in terms of developing people. And sort of quite surprising ways that seem to hold up. In terms of the session route, or what's in it for you, I think there's a number of real key deliverables. First of all, anyone a manager here? Okay, anyone manage people? Fantastic. Anyone ever work with a manager? Okay, yeah, good. I've covered all the bases. Well, you're going to definitively identify the best managers that there are. Okay, and again, this might not sit well with convention, but will give you a real key insight in terms of your own performance if you're aspiring to be a manager, your current performance if you are one, or indeed the effectiveness of the person that's currently managing you. And it's about this myth about a great manager. You know, what are great managers like? What do the great managers do? Can you spot one looking into the whites of their eyes? You know, how do you differentiate between these two as to who's likely to be the most effective? I would say, of all the stuff actually, this is probably one of the most valuable things that you can walk away with. And if you had to pay to come today, this would be the one that's worth the price of admission alone. So we're going to have a look at this, this conventional wisdom around great managers can be identified, their talents distilled and then replicated. Okay? The whole of the competency framework, anyone who operate with competencies in their organisation, yeah, it's kind of built around this, this particular thing. So, Gallup in the 1990s conducted what was the biggest piece of research to date in terms of what great managers do. So someone interested in developing people, I was fascinated as this was being, you know, sort of rolled out, and you were getting updates in all the CIPD magazines at the time as to how this was going on and where they were with it. Because I thought, quite selfishly, actually if we capture the results of this, then what we could do, we could replicate what great managers look like and what great managers do, and then what we can do is go around all the different sites, all the different depots, and we can upskill each of the managers if it gets this template. Fantastic, it's going to save us, you know, loads and loads of work. And as you can see here, the way the methodology employed was that they did behaviourally based interviews. They first of all differentiated between adequate managers and really good managers, and the way they did that was great managers deliver results through people, so they kind of keep two balls up in the air. Very easy just to look after the people and make sure everyone's happy, but the results, as we know, fall off. Conversely, it's also quite easy to be a bit of a sergeant major, yeah, and a bit of a taskmaster or even a fear manager, yeah, but then everyone walks away thinking, and it builds resentments, demotivates people after a long time, and that's unsuccessful as well. So these, it's an American term, and forgive me, these superior managers, that they call them, actually delivered results through people. They focused both on task and managed to sort of focus on people simultaneously. Yeah? They kept both balls in the air. And what Gallup did was they interviewed them, and they tried to discover if it was that these superior managers did, how did they behave to be able to reconcile sometimes two opposing objectives. What they found though was quite staggering, and it goes against every competency framework there is in the world. In that, what they found was there were massive differences in their approaches. Okay? What they found was there were differences in the way that they motivated their people, there were differences in the way that they gave them a sense of direction and purpose, there were differences in the way that they led their teams, and even the differences in the way that, say, for example, they communicated. Some of these apparently superior managers were still fairly old school, and they'd say, "You'll knock before you come in my office. You know, this is my office, I'm busy." Others were like, "Actually, I don't have an office, it's open door, you know, this, my space is your space, let's talk." That doesn't kind of make sense. Yeah? So, ultimately, with the most expensive piece of research in terms of what makes a great manager, it seemed to be that the only thing that they found out was that there was no consistency, if you want, of approach. Okay, that's a very expensive piece of research, and they've gone through 120,000 hours of behaviourally based interviews to discover, ultimately, very, very little. Or is it? I mean, for me, actually, that's quite refreshing. Because what that is saying is that there isn't one way to manage. There isn't a template, if you follow. There isn't a shape, and, you know, who hasn't been there? Scottish and Newcastle were definitely there for quite a while, where, you know, what you need to be if is, you know, this bit about motivation, you know, you need to be this level of communication, you need to be, in terms of providing direction, you need to be here, and you need to be, yeah, you're here at the moment, so we need to increase your ability to do that. And in terms of, you know, assertiveness, you know, you need to be here. And it's still an awful lot of companies operating around this particular paradigm, and it is flawed. That's all I'm going to say about that. However, there's one extra piece here. That's it. Gallup were just about to close the book on all this research. And they were about to close the book, and a researcher noticed actually that there did seem to be a pattern emerging. Something that with all of the superior managers was, it bled into their responses and bled into the words that they were using, and was absent with the managers that are either just great at keeping people happy or great at delivering task on time in full. So, what do you think it is?
Integrity.
Integrity, I think it's important. I think, and don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean to say that you know, being able to motivate isn't important either, or you know, provide a sense of direction. Critical, all of those, but they aren't the differentiator.
Prepared to listen.
Well, you're sort of moving closer now, because certainly the notion, something around communication is definitely key. Anyone else?
Are they all right?
All light?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, actually. They were, no, it wasn't. They were respected, but not necessarily light, and I think there is a critical difference there.
Compassion?
Sorry?
Compassion?
Compassionate, sort of tender-hearted, you seem lovely. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. It links to communication, it definitely links to listening. What they found was, looking through, and about to close the book, is that what these great managers did, and they weren't even aware of it, is that when they were talking about how they approach things, they used the word individualise a lot. So they treated their people as individuals, and what they did was, they realised when they were motivating the two of you, and forgive me sort of lumping them together, but actually when I'm sat down with you explaining, if you like, challenge of the next sales targets, in a completely different way to capture and engage you than I will for yourself. Because I've got enough nows to recognise that people aren't homogenous, as indeed managers aren't. So, bear that in mind moving forward, that actually the differentiator of great managers often is quite simple, and it is about this recognition of the importance of individualising. If ever you want to see more about that, have a look at a book called First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham. Fantastic, and it goes into much more detail.
I'd be interested in your thoughts around the idea of Gallup, obviously done all that research, that effectively found that nothing mattered apart from that individual piece. But they're quite big on the Clifton strengths thing, which is the sort of the groundwork and the foundation for a lot of strengths profiles across businesses.
Yeah.
Is that all a fallacy then? Is that like a...
That's a real good question.
Is that a money-making exercise for them and their consultants because they've already proven that it means nothing?
Well, I think there's two things there. First of all, I don't think they prove that it means nothing. There's obviously merit in being an effective team player. There's merit in being, sort of highly motivational. There's merit in some roles being able to influence others. What they were saying with that particular thing about the line managers was that actually none of those were sort of directly related to sort of superior performance in role. So it's still recognising that there is some value in them, but it's saying that that by itself isn't the determining factor, if you like, of success.
So to do like the strength profiling across a business still has value in it. It's still...
Yeah, I mean, the more I see, the more I'm sort of sceptical of any profiling thing that is deterministic and says you as a customer service agent should be this, and this, because it's too prescriptive. And also it doesn't buy in and recognise the strength that each individual has. Now you can go too far down that and everything becomes about the individual. Clearly there are some ways of working that are more successful in different roles. But what the recent research with the University of Hull has found is that a more helpful approach is to look at the evolving requirements and then pull out things that actually are associated with successful outcomes. And they're not an arbitrary profile that says you should be this shape. It's much more dynamic than that. So if that is the case, what you've got to do is find ways to access the right sort of moving feast of support to be able to help people at the point of need. And that's why there's such an interest in things like, it's called micro-learning, picking up learning bites, short, effective ways of learning that doesn't require you to go on a sort of 2-week residential course with a training provider like Endor, and I might be shooting myself in the foot here, because it's just changing so much the sort of learning agenda. And a lot of organisations are starting to cotton on and try and catch up with that. So it's a really interesting time for L&D. So just to say many thanks for today. I do have, as you would expect on something like this, some glorious, lovely copies of, highly discounted following the CMI's support, of Upskill. And I've certainly enjoyed spending an hour and a half with you all. And thanks for your contributions.
Thank you.